So I want to begin first by giving a very, very happy Easter to our entire 3TBX family, to our brigade commander, Colonel Buckles, and to my HHC commander, Captain Derek Roy, really the finest HHC commander this side of the Mason-Dixon. So a happy Easter to our entire 3TBX family, all up and down the eastern seaboard. And today I want to begin by asking a question. And the question I want to begin today, Easter 2025, is why did Jesus Christ come to die? That's the question. It's a very important question, probably the most important question of all time. And if you've grown up in the church like me, you might say, well, I know the answer to that. Jesus came to die to save me from my sins so I don't go to hell. And that would be a very good answer. But the truth is, that question of why did Jesus Christ come to die actually has many other answers. Many, many other answers that most people are not actually aware of. My favorite pastor, John Piper, wrote a book called 50 Reasons Why Jesus Came to Die. And today, I want us to look at just one of those other reasons. Perhaps a reason maybe that you've never ever considered before, but a very important one nonetheless. And so I want to preach from Hebrews chapter 12, 1 and 2 today. And we'll get right into it. It says, therefore, Hebrews 12, 1, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Why did Jesus come to die? According to this passage, for the joy that was set before him. But the story begins in chapter 12, and the author of Hebrews lets us know that we are surrounded by this great cloud of witnesses. And this great cloud of witnesses is this picture that the author of Hebrews has that would have included all these faithful saints, all these witnesses that were just mentioned in the prior chapter, chapter 11, and of all these faithful saints, of all these witnesses, they're gathered together to watch us run this race. And the race that we're running is the same race they ran. It is the race of faith. And the goal in the race is to complete it. Just like in former days, the great cloud of witnesses, they did complete it. Always trusting, never giving up, never quitting. No matter what obstacles, no matter what challenges, to the very end. In other words, the race that we are called to participate in, it's a metaphor for the Christian life. It's a metaphor that seems to be very intentional on the part of the author of Hebrews in borrowing from the culture of that time. And what you have to understand is that in the ancient Isthmian games of Greece, a pedestal stood at the finish line. And on it hung a wreath, the winner's prize. And that's because no one runs a race without some type of expectation of reward. And it might be nothing more than a ribbon or a trophy or a wreath. Maybe it's some prize money. Occasionally it's fame or recognition. Sometimes it's just having a healthy body. Occasionally, yes, I know, some people do run it just for fun. Yes, one of you laughed because you're thinking the same thing I'm thinking. That's perplexing. Very perplexing. Sometimes people will do that. They will run just for fun. Don't know why they would do that, but some people do. It's been known to happen. And I used to tell people and joke that the only thing I enjoy about running is when it's over. That's the only part that I actually enjoy. And so bottom line, we see a lot of different reasons why people run this race. But the Isthmian games and the Isthmian races in Greece, the race spoken of here as well in Hebrews 12, this is not the type of race that you run just for fun. In fact, the Greek word used to describe this race is a word that depicts the agony of the race, like a marathon. This is the type of race that never ever seems to end. It's definitely not the sort of race that you run for fun. Not this one. Because it's really hard. And if there is no prize waiting at the end, no one would ever run it because it's so difficult. It's so difficult that it would make the Boston Marathon seem like a cakewalk. And so the author of Hebrews offers us some advice on just how we should run this race. He says, number one, you should get as light as possible. That's what he means by saying, lay aside every weight. He says, get as light as possible, because if you're running, you want to be as light as possible. Makes sense. The heavier you are, the slower you're going to run, the more energy you're going to use up. And he has this metaphor that he's using right now for weight, and he combines it with sin. That is to say, the sin is the weight that you need to offload in order to run and finish the race. And I'll talk to a lot of people today, and they'll come and they'll sometimes tell me and things like, Joe, you know what, I do my best to be a good person, to live a good life, to leave the world a better place. But there are just certain weights that I just don't want to get rid of. There are certain weights that I just don't want to let go of. And the truth is, it's not enough simply to be a good person. I mean, there are millions of good people who will never ever finish the race. And that's because you can be the best person ever. You could be the Time Magazine Person of the Year. You still won't make it. You won't finish it. Because being a good person isn't what the race is about. And so the author of Hebrews makes it very clear that the only way to run the race is to keep your eyes on Jesus. That's what he means by looking to Jesus in verse 2. And you're like, okay, who's the Jesus guy, right? He tells us quite clearly. He is the founder. He is the perfecter of our faith. He is the Son of God. Okay, that's great. But what does that actually mean? Another way to say it is that in this race, he is our trailblazer. He's the founder of our faith, in that he went first. He is the perfecter, in that he is the champion. He has completed, he has won the race. He has defeated death itself. And that is exemplified in his total obedience to the Father in going to the cross and finishing the race set before him. That's how he's the founder and the perfecter. And so here we're running this race in Hebrews 12. He says, keep your eyes on Jesus. And you almost start to sort of get this John Bunyan vibe right now, this kind of pilgrim's progress on the way to the celestial city. He's trying to stay the course. He's trying to finish the race. But it's hard. It's really hard. We get distracted. We get enticed by different sins. The good news is that we have Jesus to help us, the founder and perfecter of our faith. And the way that Jesus continues to be the founder and perfecter of our faith is that he is the first, he is the original, he is the source of our faith. It all begins with Jesus. It all flows out of Jesus as the perfecter of our faith. He is our model that we strive to emulate. For example, in Hebrews chapter 5, verse 9, he literally says, and being made perfect, Jesus, he became the source of eternal salvation to all who obey him. Salvation is in Jesus. Salvation flows from Jesus. Salvation is found in no other person than Jesus. That's what it means for him to be the founder and the perfecter of our faith and the source of our salvation. So I want to be totally clear on this. We have salvation through Jesus or not at all. But what we usually hear in our pluralistic religious society is that, man, there's multiple ways to God. There's multiple ways to heaven. And that's just not true. Salvation comes from him, it flows out of him, and no one else. But let's consider for a moment, how did Jesus do this? Because, listen, it's one thing to say he did this, but it's another thing to understand how he did it. Or as Hebrews 12:2 would say, he endured the cross. Like how? How do you endure the cross? How do you willingly go to your death? It's not an easy thing to imagine. Like someone volunteering for death row on behalf of someone else. How do you do that? Hebrews 12 tells us he did it by looking to the joy that was set before him. That's how. And if you remember, the question that I began the sermon with, why did Jesus Christ come to die? That's the answer. For the joy that was set before him. Okay. You say, I get that. And I get that we're supposed to complete the race. I get, Joe, that we're supposed to keep our eyes on him. This kind of sounds strange. You're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, Jesus was able to endure the cross. He was able to complete the race because of the joy that was set before him? Yes. You say that sounds weird. It sounds a little strange. So maybe you ask, are there any other examples where we hear the Bible talk this way? I'm so glad you asked. Yes, in Hebrews chapter 10:34. In Hebrews 10:34, we've got a situation. There's some persecuted Christians. Notice what it says. For you, talking about the persecuted Christians, you had compassion on those in prison, and you joyfully accepted the plundering of your property, since you knew that you yourselves had a better possession and an abiding one. In other words, at some point in the early church, there were Christians who were persecuted, and someone, probably the government, stole from them because they were believers. Because they were believers. And notice their response. Notice their response. They joyfully accepted the plundering of their property. I mean, this is every socialist utopian dream. Stealing stuff from other people, definitely the Christians, for the sake of equality. And the Christians respond with... No. The Christians respond with burning down the city to the ground in peaceful protest, right? The Christians respond by setting car dealerships on fire. No, they respond with joy. You've got to be kidding me. Who does that? You joyfully accepted the plundering of your property? Like if this wasn't in the Bible, if this wasn't a verse on the screen in your Bible, you'd be like, that's going to be a joke. That's going to be a typo. Who does that? Then again, who endures a cross? You see, the persecuted Christians in Hebrews 10:34, they were able to joyfully have people rip them off because they knew that on the other side of eternity, they had a far more valuable real estate awaiting them. What motivated the persecuted Christians in Hebrews 10:34 was the same motivation for Christ on the cross. Or to say it another way, for the joy that was set before them. That's how. And just in case you think this is the only place the author of Hebrews speaks this way, or that maybe this is just a coincidence, maybe this is just a one-off, in the prior chapter, chapter 11 of Hebrews, he tells a very similar story about Moses. Here's what he says, Hebrews 11:24. By faith, Moses, when he was grown up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to be mistreated with the people of God than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. He considered the reproach, the ridicule, the insults of Christ greater wealth than the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking forward to the reward. This is mind-blowing. Like here's a guy, Moses. He's got this plush, cushy, bougie life as one of the royals, living at large in Egypt, and he just walks away from it. Just walks away from it. You say, oh, just kind of like how Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. No, don't finish that sentence. No, not like Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Not at all. Like legit walks away from it. You say, well, why would anybody do that? Why would anybody do that? Because he considered Christ as better. Which I know is crazy. Because Christ won't even show up for another 1,500 years. And just so we're on the same page, Christ, Christos, is the Greek form of Messiah, which means anointed one. How does Moses identify with Christ if Jesus isn't going to show up for another 1,500 more years? Is he given a vision? I don't know. It doesn't tell us. Maybe. But I think more probable is the fact that the way that he identified with Christ is by identifying with Messiah's people and purpose long before Christ ever came, in that he's going to choose the Hebrews over the Egyptians. He's going to choose the slaves over the king's court. He's choosing to identify with God's people, and he's not doing this willy-nilly. It says he considered. And that word considered in the Greek, this word means careful examination. It's not a quick, impulsive decision when you're at the checkout stand at Kroger. He's He's looking at this. He's thinking about this. He's like, who's got the better deal? Egypt? Egypt, what's your offer? And then he reasoned that the purposes of God were better. The reproaches of Christ was greater wealth. The reproaches of Christ were better. That means to be ridiculed, to be insulted because of Jesus. And that's really important. He's not like, oh yeah, I compared what Jesus had to offer and the Egyptians, and you know what? Jesus offered me a Bugatti, but the Egyptians only offered me a Toyota Grand Highlander. I'm going with Jesus, right? He's giving me the Bugatti. No, that's prosperity gospel. That's not what it says either. He's like, Jesus is offering me persecution and ridicule for my association with his people, and that's okay. It's still a better deal than the Egyptians offer with all their treasure and wealth. Like, how is it even possible? For the joy that was set before him. In other words, Moses was motivated like Jesus, like the persecuted Christians in chapter 10, having their property stolen from them, and they couldn't do anything about it because they ultimately knew that something better lay ahead of them on the other side of eternity. Jesus was motivated to endure the cross because he knew this. Because he knew what was at stake, because he knew what was coming. And that's because he has this eternal perspective, a perspective which so many people, including believers, don't have. Our perspective is limited to April. Our perspective is limited to the summer. Our perspective is limited to 2025. We don't have the eternal perspective that we should. When we think of our life, I mean, what do you got? A few more decades? If you're lucky? And I would argue that if he was motivated by these things, and they're very good things, like the joy that was set before him, we should be as well. And we should be motivated not just for ourselves, but to take as many people with us as possible into glory to meet Jesus. We should be motivated as much as possible to introduce as many people as possible to Jesus. Have you met my friend Jesus? And I know someone's going to point out Jesus' joy in Hebrews 12 that he held on to, that helped him to the finish line beyond the cross, well, that can't possibly be the same as our joy. It's going to be different. And I would say, want to bet? And that's because before he died, Christ made a connection between his joy and our joy. In John 15:11, he said, "These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be full." Not half full, not partially full, totally full. But my joy is going to be in you, Jesus says, and you're going to be filled up all the way to max capacity. And here's the thing, only Jesus can do that. And only those who truly follow him get to receive that joy and happiness. If you don't truly follow him, you don't get it. If you don't truly love him, you don't get it. If you don't truly know him, you do not get it. And I said at the beginning, this is not the type of race that you run for fun. It's a hard race. It's a difficult race, which is why he says you've got to take off every weight. And weight means sin. Therefore, if you're a Christian, if you love Jesus, you've got to let go of these things in your life. They're going to keep you from the finish line. And even then, it will still be incredibly difficult, which is why Jesus says in Matthew 10:24-25, he says, "A disciple is not above his teacher, nor a servant above his master." It is enough for the disciple to be like his teacher and the servant like his master. If they have called the master of the house Beelzebul, if they've called him Beelzebul, how much more will they malign those of his household? He tells his disciples, listen guys, if they're calling me the devil, Jesus says, if they're coming after me, if they're trying to malign me in the wake of me doing miracles and helping people, then know for sure they're going to come after you too. They're going to attack you. They're going to say terrible things about you. They're going to try to steal from you legally. Or the Attorney General will make some law that categorizes you as a domestic terrorist. In some situations, they're even going to justify murdering you. The race of faith is hard. And so many people think that the Christian life is the opposite. So many people think that when they become a Christian, their life is going to get easier. That the Christian life is just filled with butterflies and lollipops and cotton candy. Like, this is the American Disneyland version of Christianity, except it's not. It's not at all. Like, if you're hearing this for the very first time, my apologies for all the bad theology that you've been taught. This race was hard for Jesus. It was so hard that it cost him his life. And understand clearly, it may very well cost you your life as well. 1 week ago today, in Nigeria, last Sunday when we were here, 113 Christians were murdered. One of the most dangerous countries on the planet to be a Christian. They were murdered. They were rounded up, men, women, children, and they were burned alive in their homes. Four weeks earlier, 80 Christians were murdered in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And most of the world heard absolutely nothing about it. Black Lives Matter, right? Unless they're living in another country and they're Christians. If that's the case, those black lives, they matter absolutely nothing to the news media, to the culture at large. Those black lives, those brown lives, whatever the color, they don't matter at all because they're Christians. Therefore, their lives are expendable and meaningless, but not to Christ and not to the great cloud of witnesses cheering them on to the finish line. And so if people are literally trying to kill us, how on earth are we supposed to finish this race? Answer, we let go of sin and we take hold of Christ. We look to the example of someone who's already completed it. We look to our champion. We look to our perfecter. We look to our trailblazer. We look to the founder of our faith. We look to our constant. We look to our touchstone. We look to our king. How did he do it? For the joy that was set before him. By looking not just to the finish line, but beyond, right? Beyond the obstacles, beyond the suffering, beyond the cross. For the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. And I realize this is all kind of abstract. Like, what does that even mean? And the reality is that the joy that was set before him had many dimensions. It would have certainly included the joy of being reunited with his Father. I mean, that's what Hebrews 12:2 says, that he will sit at the right hand of the throne of God. There's certainly joy in getting to see your Father again. Or the psalmist might say it like this in Psalm 16:11, in your presence is fullness of joy, at your right hand are pleasures forevermore. He's better. Heard Piper say that. He's better, right? The psalmist says it. He's better. Pleasures forevermore that make 8 and 9 and 10-figure salaries look like something you just fished out of a dumpster. For the joy that was set before him would have also included the triumph over sin, the successful rescue of his people, like in Luke 15:7. Just so I tell you, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over the 99 righteous persons who need no repentance. And not just one, but millions and billions of people he has rescued through his work on the cross. And understand this. He didn't just endure the cross, he despised its shame. And this is important. This is really important. Especially when we experience cultural pressures to conform and turn our back on Christ. So Hebrews 12:2, it says he didn't just endure the cross, he despised the shame of the cross. So you've got the cross, you've got death, but then you've got the shame that comes with the cross. You've got the humiliation. You've got the embarrassment. You've got the ridicule. You've got the people slandering you, attacking you. Remember Moses? He faced this in Egypt when considering, do I identify with the Egyptians? Do I identify with the Hebrews? And Hebrews 12:2 says that Christ despised it. He laughed at it. He said, you got nothing on me, shame. You don't control me. Oh, that we must see Christ this way. We must partake in the joy of Christ that was set before him. Because the culture, man, they're coming for us. So what do you mean? We just finished March Madness. Now, I'm not a basketball fan, and I need to be honest with you. I spent all of 3 minutes watching March Madness. I think Florida won. Is that right? Okay, Florida won. Go Florida. We like Florida. America's governor. But I remember March Madness from 4 years ago. And every year March Madness has a certain specialness about it. Everyone's looking out who's going to be the Cinderella team, the 15 seed, the 16 seed, who's going to be the Cinderella team to tree the giants, the David and the Goliaths. And 4 years ago, it was a small school named Oral Roberts. And they came in, Miley Cyrus style, like a wrecking ball. And they're just treeing these giants left and right. They make it to the Sweet 16. It's remarkable. It's remarkable. Because Oral Roberts is this tiny little Christian school, right? They're not nearly as big as Liberty. Small Christian school. They make it to the Sweet 16. I think they're the 15, the 16 seed. And this article comes out by USA Today, and the article talks about how Oral Roberts has no place to be in the tournament. Not because they're this Cinderella story, they're David facing Goliath, not for any of the reasons you might think that actually have to do with athletic competition on the court of basketball. No, they don't deserve to be in the tournament because their school believes things about the Bible, about marriage, about gender, about sexuality. And the article in USA Today went on to basically call for the NCAA to shut them down, that they were committing these atrocities against humanity. The NCAA should not even let them participate in their Sweet 16 game. They should be automatically have to forfeit the game. And anyone that believes these things, these terrible things, these racist, bigoted things should be removed from society and sent off to re-education camps. I remember Al Mohler covered it. They hate them and they hate you. If you love Jesus, if you're a Christian, if you believe the Bible, they hate you. They don't tolerate you, they hate you. You kid yourself to think, I think I can maybe be Switzerland. You can't. They hate you. And you think about the race. The race is hard enough with the normal sinful temptations that we have to cast off. And then on top of that, you add dealing with all the shame and the pressure from the culture. People are coming at you. They're going to write articles about you. They're going to malign you. If you try to obey Jesus, if you love Jesus, if you worship Jesus, this is a very difficult thing. Jesus warns us it's going to be difficult so that we might have no illusions about it. In Matthew 5:11, he says this, "Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you." This is what Christ did for us in Hebrews 12. Despising the shame of the cross, he says, shame, you got nothing on me. Shame, do your worst. USA Today, go ahead and make my day. But I know some people don't like this. They don't like all this hardship and difficulty talk in a sermon. Say, I came to hear a traditional Easter sermon. I don't want to hear about the suffering and hardships. And my response would be, there can be no Easter without suffering and hardships. This is not a sermon designed to entertain you. This is a sermon designed to prepare you. And what I'm saying may be really, really hard because you grew up in the church, maybe like me, and you're like, no, hold on, time out. You're supposed to, if I remember correctly, you're supposed to do the right thing for the right reason no matter what. Love's an action. So you just do the right thing, kind of like duty, honor, country in this almost army-like sort of way. Just do the right thing. Doesn't matter how you feel, whether the emotions are there or not. Just suck it up, drive forward toward the objective, and make it happen. There's a problem with that. A partial problem, at least. And I'll illustrate it with a story. Imagine if I was to take a young lady on a date. We'll call her Diana. You guys agree that's a good name? And I'm going to dress to the nines. I'm going to show up. She's looking like a dime. I've gone through all the preparation. I've got the flowers. I got the reservation at the restaurant. I even got a limo. And she opens the door, and she's like, Joe, you're doing this all for me? No, Joe, this is too much. And she's smiling, and she's happy. I mean, this is great. I'm killing it right now. Gentlemen, take notes. And then she's like, how come? And I say, because it's my duty and obligation to do this. Gentlemen, if you ever find yourself in this situation or a similar situation, don't say that. Don't say I'm doing this because it's my duty. I have to. I'm checking the box. Don't say that, please. So rewind for a moment. She opens the door. She says, this is so amazing. Why are you doing this? And I say, nothing would bring me greater joy and happiness. Nothing would bring me greater joy and happiness and satisfaction than to make you happy, to take you out, to spend time with you. Bingo. And you know what? You know what she wouldn't say? She wouldn't say, if I gave that as an answer, she wouldn't say, oh, there you go again. So selfish, Joe. Nothing would bring you more joy and happiness than to take me out. You make everything about you, Joe. All you do is think about yourself, Joe. She'd never say that. Because me finding joy and happiness in her, and satisfaction in her, it makes much of her. It honors her. It elevates her. It magnifies her. You might even say it glorifies her. Now we go back to all the reward talk. Why did Jesus Christ come to die? For the joy that was set before him. I don't deny that love is an action, but it's a problem if you say that's all it is. You say, well, you better back that up with Scripture. I'm so glad you asked. 1 Corinthians 13. I'll paraphrase it. He says, even if I do all these great things, culminating with offering my body up as a sacrifice to be burned, if there's no love, he calls it a clanging cymbal. Like nobody runs the race. Nobody runs this type of race just for fun. It's too hard, right? It's too hard when you're in prison. It's too hard when you can't participate in NCAA sports anymore. It's too hard when they shut your social media account down because you posted Christian content. It's too hard when they eventually come and they put handcuffs on you because you won't deny Christ. If you don't see Christ as more beautiful and more satisfying and more glorious for the joy set before you, you'll never finish the race. And you will continue to hold on to the sin that weighs you down. The same sin that's lying to you, that's making promises that it never intends to keep. Remember back for a second to the backdrop of this text. The ancient Isthmian Games in Greece. That's important to remember. That's the backdrop. Which is why he began by saying, lay aside every weight. And if you would just indulge me, if you just visualize this for a moment. Picture the ancient games in Greece. You could picture the runners. You could visualize the sights and the sounds of the runners, the roar of the crowd. You could almost hear their feet in stride striking the ground. Even right now, before you, they enter into the arena.
Guys, water. Towel. I need a towel.
But it's,
oh gosh. 13 miles in, 13 more to go. Oh, hey Joe, are you busy? You doing anything important?
I'm preaching the Easter sermon.
Oh, sorry, my bad. It's time for the, this was the right time to show up.
Yeah, I was just waiting for the sermon illustration to begin.
Oh, I'm here.
Okay, but why is there water all over me, the floor, and why do you have weights in your hand?
So, your intern was supposed to put it in my mouth, and I always run with weights.
Okay. Yeah, this wasn't in the script for me to get water on me.
No, I know. We didn't plan it that way.
Okay. You're running a race.
Yes.
What race?
It's on
The 6th annual Dr. Anthony Fauci 15 Days to Flatten the Curve Memorial Pro-Am Fun Run Race for the Cure.
Yes.
That's not a real race.
Yeah, it is. The church paid for it, me to run in it.
The church did not spend any money on this fictional race, just so we're clear. Do you intend to actually finish the race?
Yeah, I'm in first right now. Everyone's like a few miles behind me.
You're in first in this pretend fictional race.
Yes.
I would recommend, if you do intend to finish, that you put those weights down.
What do you mean? I always run with weights. And before you say they're heavy, they're only 10 pounds each.
Okay, let me just point out that those weights may feel manageable right now, but if you actually intend to get to the finish line, they're going to keep you from getting there.
You make a compelling argument. But I've always run with weights, and my friends and my family, they're actually proud of me for running with weights. They celebrate it.
I would just push back, and I would say this. Just because your friends and your family celebrate it, and they have parades, and they wave flags, and they encourage you, doesn't mean it's true. If you've been listening to the sermon, the author of Hebrews makes it very clear that if you don't lay aside every weight, you won't make it to the end.
Nobody's ever told me that before. You know, here's what I'll do. I'll put one weight down. Now I only have half the weight. I'll still be able to finish, right?
No, you won't. You have to lay aside everything.
Everything? Man. But how about this? It's mile 13, right? 13 more to go. What if I just hold on to it till like mile 22, mile 23? I'll still be able to finish. It's not even that.
No, you're making an assumption. The assumption that you're making is that you'll actually still have time when there's no guarantee you're going to have any more time beyond this moment.
Oh, that's a good point. I think I'll put it down. I can't. I love this weight too much. I don't think there's something better than this weight in life. I'm sorry, but I'll see you at Love Feast. I'm going to finish the race.
Are you like him? You think your sin that you're holding on to is manageable? You think the sin that you're holding on to is insignificant? It's small, it's hidden. No one knows. No one's going to find out. I can still function. It doesn't affect me that much. Are you like him? You got to let it go. And not just let it go, but you have to hold fast to the joy that was set before you in Jesus, the founder and the perfecter of our faith. Make no mistake about it. There is no other way to get to the finish line apart from Christ. None. Lord, we love you. We love you, Lord, because you first loved us. I pray, God, that we would see you as better, that we would see you the way the persecuted Christians who had their real estate stolen from them, their homes, their houses, that we would see you the way Moses saw you as better, that better than anything the Egyptians could offer to him. I pray that we would see you the way your Son sees you, that we would be motivated for the joy set before us. Lord, help us to see you as better, as more desirable than whatever sin that we just don't want to give up or let go of. Help us to let go of it, Jesus. We pray this in your name.